Hi, I'm Alice Medrich. Welcome to my kitchen. I've been experimenting with recipes and playing with chocolate in this space for more years than I can count. You may know me from my cookbooks, from Bittersweet, Recipes and Tales from a Life in Chocolate, or perhaps Pure Dessert. Today I want to show you how to make one of my favorite recipes with Scharffen Bittersweet chocolate and natural cocoa powder. Now, some people believe that it's not worth paying for artisan chocolate if you're just going to put it in a recipe or do something baked with it, but I completely disagree. Good ingredients always make a difference. Great chocolate does make great desserts. When you're working with really flavorful, wonderful chocolate, sometimes a little goes a long way. And just to make that point in a really big way, I'm going to make a fallen chocolate souffle cake that just happens to have fewer calories and less fat than most desserts of its type. Don't hit the off button. We're not doing diet food. Your friends will never know that this is a slightly healthy chocolate torte unless you tell them. I'm going to start out with a half a cup of natural cocoa powder in here, and you can see that I have some 70% Scharffen Bittersweet in there, only about 3 ounces, and I've chopped it really fine, and then some sugar. What I'm banking on is that the wonderful flavor of the cocoa and a little bit of the real bittersweet chocolate is going to pack a lot of flavor without having to use too much. So I'm going to mix this all up and dump in a half a cup of boiling water. And the boiling water is going to do 2 things. It's going to hydrate the cocoa and bring out a lot of flavor, and it's going to melt my chocolate. So I'm skipping that step of melting the chocolate, which is a great thing. Now, in a cake with as little fat and sugar in this, the flavors of the chocolate are going to really come through, and that's why I like to choose a really flavorful chocolate. Now, as soon as the chopped up chocolate is melted, I'm going to dump in the egg yolks, just 2 of them. That thickens the chocolate up a little bit. And a tablespoon of rum or brandy, or nothing at all if you prefer. Now we're going to step over and beat the 4 egg whites. And you want a clean, dry mixing bowl for this, and a little bit of cream of tartar to stabilize the egg whites. Now I'm going to wait and sprinkle in a little sugar when the egg whites are no longer yellow and translucent, but a little bit opaque and white and show some really soft peaks. Now, as soon as the egg whites are white and the bubbles are smaller and I can see some tracks from the beaters, I'm going to start to sprinkle on the sugar. And I'm going to beat the egg whites until they're stiff but not dry. Okay. If in doubt, it's always better to underbeat a little rather than over. Sometimes I actually finish up by hand. Great. And then just before I add the egg whites, I'm going to dump in a little bit of ground up almonds and flour. This smells wonderful. Lots of chocolate aroma coming from this. A little bit of the egg whites go in next, and I just use a folding stroke. I want those egg whites to blend in there, and I want them to lighten the heavier chocolate mixture. And then all the rest of the egg whites go in on top. And this is what's going to make the cake rise and then fall again. The folding stroke is cutting down through the center, bringing the spatula up the side of the bowl, and just letting the mixture fall over on top of itself. And I'm just going to continue until we don't see too many white stripes in there any longer. This is the technique that sets apart the new cook from the experienced one. The faith that it's all going to get blended even though you're taking a folding stroke rather than a stirring stroke. Then the batter goes into a spring-form pan that's greased on the side and with a round of paper on the bottom. And then into a 375-degree oven for about 25 minutes. So this is my fallen souffle cake. If you check it out in the oven when it's baked, it'll have risen high in the pan, just like a souffle, and when you take it out, it sinks like a souffle, and that's why it's called a fallen souffle cake. In any case, I like to serve it at room temperature, just with a sprinkling of powdered sugar on top. And then when I serve it, a dollop of whipped cream is definitely in order if you like, and maybe some fresh berries, or eat it just the way it is. Now, I first made this cake for a low-fat cookbook that I did years and years ago, and I worked really hard to get a lot of chocolate flavor in there, and this was before Scharffen had started making chocolate. As soon as I was working with the Scharffen chocolate, I found that I was getting tons more flavor using the 70% bittersweet, and I switched over from Dutch process to natural cocoa because there was so much more liveliness and complexity and fruit flavor involved that it just transformed this recipe, which I have to say was already pretty good to start with. I'm Alice Medrich. Thanks for joining me today.